Well, let's talk more about the issues in the presidential campaign with Colonel Patrick Murray. He is the Republican nominee for the U.S. Congress for the 8th District of Virginia. Mr. Murray is a retired U.S. Army colonel with 24 years of active duty service. Colonel, thank you for your service to your nation and welcome to America's Morning News.
Good morning, Chris and Dana. It's great to be on.
Thank you.
Sir, you're running for a district that belongs currently to Jim Moran. He's been in that seat for 30 years. Why is it time for him to be out of that seat and to put you in?
Well, Chris, I would just say it belongs to the people. It doesn't belong to Jim. He's occupied it for, as you said, since, as we used to say in the Army, since Christ was a corporal. And it's been long enough. And I'll tell you, the way he stays in, just think of it as Jim's own little mafia empire. And it's a combination of intimidation and payoffs, which he does with earmarks. And there are a few Democrats in this district as well.
Well, and a few in the state of Virginia, we have to point out. There was this new Quinnipiac Times CBS poll coming out that shows the president has a 4-point lead in Virginia right now. What are you feeling as far as your state goes? It's very much in play. What do you think is going to happen in the next 89 days?
It's exciting to be in the Commonwealth in 2012. I believe we're the center of gravity for what happens in the future. You know, my favorite Ronald Reagan quote is that freedom is only a generation away from extinction. And I think that's where we are. And I think that Virginia is going to decide who's the occupant of the White House. Virginia is going to decide which way the Senate goes. And for me, my job is to get rid of the most hyper-partisan, entrenched, liberal incumbent with an anger management problem that exists in Congress.
Colonel, a slight correction on my part. I say that Mr. Moran has been in Congress for 30 years. It's actually closer to 21 years. But let me ask you about, you say that Mr. Moran is part of the problem, but you go back to when the Republicans held both houses of Congress and President Bush was in office. The Republicans responsible for adding a good deal of debt to our national debt, about $4.5 trillion added to the national debt under the Bush administration. And a lot of folks believe it was responsible for the Republicans' defeat in 2006. What's your take?
I think that there's culpability on both sides, but when I look at my focus, which is Jim Moran, when he came into Congress, we had a relatively manageable $3 trillion of debt. And now we have, by the time we put this current deficit on top of it, we're going to be pushing $17 trillion of debt, which exceeds our GDP. And when I mention freedom being a generation away from extinction, I don't want to be part of the first generation of Americans that hands off a country to our kids that's worse off than what we got. And that's where we're headed, and that's why I'm running for Congress, and Jim Moran is part of that problem, and that's my focus.
Well, that was going to be my question, Colonel. Obviously, service to your country is nothing new for you, but in this hyper-partisan atmosphere, so much derision, what made you decide to jump into the fray?
Well, Dana, I think you take an oath of office when you join the military, and it's to support and defend the Constitution. And I don't have a statute of limitations on that, even though I've retired. And I just felt that looking at that, what you just described, the hyperpartisanship, the gridlock, the continuing piling on of debt, and now with this whole specter of sequestration, and I hear this a lot with constituents. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent, and we have a lot of independents in the 8th District. There are a lot of jobs that are going to be lost right here in Northern Virginia in the defense industry, and $500 billion coming out of our defense budget on top of what we've already cut. When you hear the Secretary of Defense call it, quote, devastating, you have to stand up and pay attention and try to do something about it.
Colonel, the President of the United States on record here, I got about 45 seconds for you to answer, sir. But the President on record saying Republicans, just like you, want to take women back to the 1950s. You want to remove their choices in health care. Is that true?
It's true that the president wants to talk about everything but his record, and that's what he's going to continue to do. And it's not about that. It is about what they're going to talk about to try to distract the American voters from what's really happened in the last 3.5 years.
All right, Colonel Patrick Murray. He's the Republican nominee for the U.S. Congress for the 8th District of the great state of Virginia. You can follow him at Twitter at GOP Patrick Murray. Sir, good luck and appreciate you being here on America's Morning News.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Dana. Have a great day.